So this is our final video lecture, and it's on the types of muscle contraction that we have in the body and what we do. This was just a recap, but we've already gone over it in the last video lecture, so I'm going to skip over it. Okay, antagonistic pairs. So we had two key terminologies we need to talk about in terms of antagonistic pairs. We've got the agonist and antagonist. So I want you to think of your agonist as your prime mover. That's the one that controls the movement, although as we'll discuss in a little bit later, it doesn't always control the full movement, but the agonist is the prime mover. But it will determine the direction of movement through the muscle. And the antagonist helps return a joint to its natural position. So muscles have to work in pairs. If you contracted your biceps, you flex your bicep and your hand is up now by your shoulder. If your tricep wasn't there, you cannot return it back to its natural position. And this is because muscles can only pull, they can't push, so your bicep can push it back. What the antagonist will do is relax and lengthen as the agonist contracts. Okay, key terminology here, reciprocal inhibition. So this is where they work together as pairs. So the reason this is really important, the antagonist will relax as the agonist contracts. Imagine they're pulling against each other. Think of the injury you could cause to yourself if your two muscles are contracting against each other. You're going to break muscle fibers, excuse me, and you're just going to get injured, which is obviously going to be massively detrimental to sporting performance, which we really don't want. Also, if you think about if it acts against it, not only are you going to injure yourself, you're not going to be able to contract as forcefully. So if you think of yourself trying to run a 100-meter race, but someone's dragging you backwards, you're obviously not going to run as far because someone's dragging you backwards. Now, this is the important point you need to think about. Where I said your agonist always controls the movement, so if we go back, it's the prime mover. That's correct. But I want you to think about doing a bicep curl now. So you've just done the upward phase, and the dumbbell is up by your shoulder because you've contracted your bicep. What you now need to do is contract your tricep to return the bicep back down towards your hip. Now, if your bicep fully relaxes during this movement, as your tricep can only pull, it can't push, the dumbbell would accelerate rapidly down towards your leg and there'd be no control of the movement. So what will happen is your bicep will contract and act as a brake. So your tricep's still the prime mover as it's returning down because your tricep's the one contracting and shortening. However, as your bicep is relaxing, sorry, not relaxing, as your bicep is the antagonist, it can't fully relax. It has to control that movement, so it acts as like a brake. Another example of this is when you jump in the air and you land. As you land and you're bending your knees, your quadriceps in the front of your upper leg are lengthening. Therefore, they're the antagonist. But they need to act as a brake. If they don't act as a brake, you're going to fall on the floor. So that's reciprocal inhibition. Here is a group of muscles which link as pairs. We've already looked at biceps and triceps. But another common example, as I said, is the quadriceps and hamstrings. You can research, they're normally either on the posterior and anterior of the body, and they just work opposite each other. Okay, two more key terminologies. We've got the synergist and we've got the fixator also. Now, first of all, the synergist assists the agonist in the production of the desired movement. So it can help by pulling up as well. So it might be something like the brachioradialis in the arm during a bicep curl. That can help as well. The fixator is something which fixes it in. So if we think of our bicep curl again, think of your rotator cuff muscles, or think of your deltoids more. Sorry, your delts are going to hold that muscle in. Because what you want to do with a bicep curl is isolate the bicep, so it's only really the bicep working, because that's how you're going to get your best gains. Now, by fixing in, that allows that movement to be controlled and in one plane. If you click here, it takes you to an example on the internet, which clearly shows the... Sorry about that, the pause of the video my daughter was calling me. If you click up here, it takes you to an example, two examples. One's doing a bench press, and the other is, I can't remember, I think it is, it's a pectoral muscle that's being activated anyway. I can't remember the exercise. if you look at them, it shows you which is the agonist, antagonist, synergist, and fixator. If these didn't work in harmony, you wouldn't be able to do skillful movements, or you wouldn't be able to do specific sporting movements. Think about when you're doing a volley in football or something like that, or if you're doing a shot in basketball. If there wasn't a fixator there, keeping that range of motion under control, then you wouldn't be able to perform the movement very good. If you didn't have a synergist helping you with something like the clean and jerk, you would not be able to lift as much weight as you could previously. Right, 3 types of contraction. So we've got isometric, where you're not moving at all. We've got isotonic, where you do move, and that breaks down in concentric and eccentric muscle contractions. And then you've got isokinetic. So if we look at isometric first, like I said, the muscle remains the same length during the contraction. So you're actually contracting. So you're doing something like the plank, where your abs are contracting, and if you do the plank, it will hurt. Like you will eventually fatigue and not be able to do it much longer. So you're definitely contracting your muscles. However, they're not lengthening. An example is something like the crucifix in the rings in gymnastics. Isotonic, already talked about it being while moving, and we got concentric and eccentric. So concentric is where the muscle, where the working muscle shortens, and eccentric is where it lengthens. If we look at the bicep curl again, it's a really good example, so I keep going back to it. Obviously, your bicep shortens on the upward phase. On the downward phase, I've already said this, your tricep, that is pulling it down, because muscles only pull, they can't push, remember. However, your bicep is working as it's lengthening, because it has to act as a brake. Like I said, if it wasn't working as the brake, the dumbbell would fall rapidly and you would get injured. And go through this picture in your own time, but it just shows the contractions nicely. Make sure you download the slides. Isokinetic, this is a really interesting one. So with isotonic contractions, the muscle does change length while it's contracting, but the exact same force will be through the whole contraction. The speed of contraction will be constant. So you can have isokinetic weightlifting machines, but these are extremely expensive, and you normally find these in sport and exercise science laboratories. So if you go to university, you may find one. However, there are some very common sporting examples out there. So a spin bike's one. If you think about it, you've got the resistance pads either side of the flywheel, and as you turn resistance up, it's causing your muscles to use the same force all the way through every time you go through, every time you do a rep. Because it's not changing. The pad's only resting as much as it was 60 reps ago, as long as you haven't changed the resistance. Another example is the breaststroke in swimming as well. You think about your arms going out, and then how they will go out to the sides. So you've come out with your arms together, and they both go out to the sides. Fighting against the water is going to be the same force all the way through. So that is also another example of isokinetic muscular contraction. What's really important for your assignment is you need to be able to demonstrate that you know for specific movements what different muscles are and the contraction type. So I'm going to look at the bicep curl again, because like I said, it is a really good example. The agonist is the bicep. What I should have done actually is said this is on the upward stage. So on the upward stage, the bicep's the agonist, is the one that's shortening. Antagonist is the tricep, because that's the one that relaxes. Synergist is the brachialis, because what that does is also helping to lift the dumbbell up. And then you've got the deltoid as well. Deltoid is fixing it in, making sure that the bicep is isolated, so we get the best gains we can. Contraction type is concentric, because it's shortening. Sorry, go back. If you're interested in higher criteria, you need to explain and analyze. Now, I've explained and analyzed throughout this video lesson. I also explained how these were each of these terms. When you analyze, I want you to tell me what would happen if a different muscle wasn't there, or if maybe the fixator didn't happen. Maybe if the tricep didn't relax, what would happen? Make sure you answer these questions at the bottom to help you with things like that. So that's the end of your video lessons. Hopefully you find these helpful.